Hey folks, welcome to 149 of 1% Better, and I am delighted that you're here. Last week's episode, in the intro, I mentioned that I have a spare copy of a book called Time to Think by Nancy Kline to give away to a listener. All you got to do is send an email to rob@robofthegreen.ie, subject Time to Think, and say why you want to win it, and you'll be in to draw. And also, if you could, tell a friend about it, not about the book or the competition, but about the podcast. And maybe if they then sent an email in, they'd be in the draw as well and could win this book, Time to Think, very useful for coaching, for self-development, yourself and your teams. And what would be cool maybe as well, if that person or other people sent a WhatsApp around to one of their many groups to say, have you heard of this podcast, 1% Better, have a listen, and some random people from that group then send the email in as well. And if you do, send in the email, send in where you heard the show, and the more that come in, the better. I will be doing a draw for that at the end of next week. So for episode 150, a milestone one, I'll more than likely read it out at the start of that. If I forget, it'll definitely be 151, which will be the wrap-up of season 3, which is coming in the next couple of weeks. Season 4 will come a little bit further down the line, if you know what I mean. So this week's episode is with a Chess Grandmaster, Ireland's only Chess Grandmaster as things stand. His name is Alexander Baburin, and he, as the name may suggest, he's not naturally from Ireland, but he's been living here for a number of years, probably 20 years or so. And he's a very, very interesting story of how he became a chess grandmaster. And this one is definitely about chess, but you don't have to know too much about chess. You'll learn a lot about chess in it. You'll learn about a national master, an international master called an IM, and then how to get to a grandmaster, a GM. And the approaches Alexander took to become a grandmaster. And a lot of this came from a book I read just before Christmas, Bounce by Zayed, where they talk about hard work versus talent and the myth of talent, and that anyone can become an expert in any field if they do the 10,000 hours, but not just cranking up those hours, doing it in a very deliberate way, which is a brilliant book. And I kind of put some of the questions from that book to Alexander and probed a little bit there and learned so much about chess. I can play chess, but I'm not great at it. I know how I could get better now with some of the stuff Alexander shares. So if you're a fan of chess, you'll get lots out of this. But if you're interested in habits, personal development, and approaches taken to get to that top level, you will definitely enjoy this one as well. So I shall leave it there. Enjoy the podcast 149 with Alexander Baburin, all about chess and being a grandmaster and how you can be a grandmaster of anything if you potentially want to. Enjoy.
Welcome to another edition of the 1% Better podcast with your host, Rob O'Donoghue.
Hey folks, welcome to 1% Better, another week, another episode, and another topic that I have been looking forward to talking about in depth for a long time, but haven't had the opportunity until now, and it is going to focus on chess. And I'm talking to Ireland's only Chess Grandmaster. His name is Alexander Baburin. Alexander, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning.
And I am right in saying you're still Ireland's only Grandmaster.
Yes, that's correct, but hopefully that will not be for too long.
Yeah, well, that's
one of my former students is getting very close to completing his quest for the title, so hopefully he will be joining me soon.
Very good. Cool. We'll double the amount in Ireland. That's always good. So, Alexander, thanks for doing this. And I guess when I was reading a book over probably late in December, a book called Bounce by a gentleman called Zayed. Have you heard of it?
No.
So he was a world-class table tennis player, but now he's a journalist. He's from the UK. And he talked about the 10,000 hour rule. I'm sure you've heard of that.
Yeah, I came across that recently on my Facebook page. Somebody asked me whether I was 10,000 hour Grandmaster. I didn't really know the connection to any book, but I kind of sensed what it was all about. So kind of hard work versus talent, maybe in addition to talent. So, but basically kind of the amount of work you may need to put in.
Very good. Yeah. So he didn't come up with the term 10,000 hours. He definitely wrote a bit about it. There was another guy called Malcolm Gladwell, I think, that had a lot to do with the 10,000 hours, 3 hours a day over 10 years to become, I guess, master at whatever profession, whatever activity, sport that you might apply yourself to. And they did talk about chess in the book. And he mentioned the 3 Polgar sisters. Have you heard of the Polgar sisters?
Oh, yeah, I know them, yeah.
Yeah, he mentioned the 3 of them and that their father basically had them playing chess from a very young age and coached them and developed them. And they all became Grandmasters, I believe.
2 of them did. One of them was very close to getting that title, but she kind of stopped playing at that stage. So 2 of them became kind of fully fledged Grandmasters. In chess, we have this kind of title which goes back a bit, which is Women Grandmaster. Okay. That goes back to the time when women were considerably weaker at chess than men. So to encourage their participation, there were kind of separate titles in kind of invented. Of course, any lady can get a, kind of full title like International Master or Grandmaster. So we are talking here about the full title. So 2 of the sisters, they are Grandmasters and 1 is International Master.
Okay. Have you played any of them?
I play them only in friendly games. I was in Budapest sometime in I think it was probably late 80s, maybe early 90s, and met their father at the Hungarian Chess Federation, and he invited me to their apartment because he was going to do a little friendly tournament with a few visiting players and the three sisters. So we played a little competition. We call it Blitz, so 5 minutes per game. And before that started, I played a Blitz match against the eldest sister.
Okay, very, very good. Did you win?
I forgot the result of that match. Okay. I think she destroyed me now, actually.
Very interesting. Cool. So that's where, I suppose, when I was reading the book and I've always had an interest in chess, I did a bit of research to see if there was anyone in Ireland, and this has brought me to you. So I'm really looking forward to talking to you about your career and you as a Grandmaster. So let's go back to the start. When did chess become something in your life? Maybe talk to me a little bit about the early stages and how it became a passion.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Russia, in a big city called Nizhny Novgorod. At that stage, it was called Gorky. The city is located about 300 miles east of Moscow. I was an only child in the family, both parents working, and sometimes an elderly relative, a lady, would look after me. So when I discovered chess at the age of 7, approximately, I felt it was a godsend because it was just really helped me to kind of pass time. I started playing with my dad, so he was the one who taught me the rules. And shortly after that, a woman came to our school and she started a chess club. I joined and quite quickly realized this is what I really liked, and I was reasonably good at it, and started kind of reading books and competing in tournaments. And I think a few years later, probably 3 or 4 years later, I was seriously hooked on chess. So I was traveling in Russia to different places to compete in tournaments.
Mm. And in those early days, what sort of, going back to the 10,000 hours idea, how many hours a day were you playing chess, and how quickly did that start to kind of ramp up?
Really hard to tell looking back, to be honest. I mean, I think we may tend to exaggerate sometimes how much time you spend on something. I really don't remember. I do know I spent a lot of time. Looking back, I don't think most of the time was spent efficiently, because most young players, they don't really know what to do, how to spend their time on something they like. So there was some structure because I had a coach, but nonetheless, sometimes you spend just too much time, sometimes just playing friendly games, which is okay too. But I wouldn't say that it was all kind of structured study, okay? And it's hard to put a figure. I mean, there could be days when I would do absolutely nothing. There could be days when I would be kind of, spending a lot of time, all available time on chess. I would say maybe 10 hours plus a week, something like this.
Okay. And it's interesting, you mentioned the kind of structured play, or what probably I would call deliberate practice in a way, where you're not just having free form games. And you mentioned a coach. Was it when they came along, and how did they kind of structure your play, and what were, I suppose, the scenarios maybe that they would put out? How does that work?
Well, I mean, when you decide to spend some time on chess, consciously or maybe even subconsciously, we just like, in case of a child who likes to do something like playing chess, you do it and you want to do more of it. The question is, I think, what is the best use of that time? What do you do in that time? Okay. In chess, it's not really just about playing, because you're playing, say, in a competition. That, of course, is a lot of time, but it's what you do outside of it counts for a lot as well, maybe more. So what do you do between games, before the competition, things like this. So say I have a competition coming up, and I have, say, for argument's sake, 3 weeks, okay? And I can designate certain time each day for studying chess. So then I probably need to plan what I'm going to spend that time on. Should it be my own games? Should I study my own games? Should I study games of my opponents so I can understand them better and be prepared? Should I look at some opening plays, maybe something what has been discovered lately in practice, or maybe learn something new, like new opening? I could study endgames, so it's kind of concrete knowledge, something like, sort of kind of studying for exams in a sense, but not quite like that, okay? Or I can be studying chess tactics. So there are different topics you can study in chess, and how much time you designate to each topic. What topic gets more weight? That is a difficult question. Junior players, children, are often not experienced enough to answer that question correctly. So this is when the coach kind of comes along and can advise, you should pay attention to this, you should do that, you're weak at this, therefore you should kind of try to cover this area of your game. So this is that was actually kind of very useful in my case, because I had access to one of the leading players in our region, and he helped me a lot.
Interesting. How did your focus on chess around the time, growing up, have an impact positively or negatively on your schooling or your academic career?
That's a good question. I spent a lot of time playing chess. Often enough, it was eating into my school time. So like competitions could be held during the sort of school year. I never had a problem getting a leave of absence from our school. Generally, schools were supportive of chess. The school administrations, they were kind of viewing this as something very positive. I was a very good student, I must say, and in a way, chess kind of helped me because you have to plan ahead. So I remember one particular instance. I was going away, and for maybe like 10 days or something like this, at least a week, and I knew that we were about to start examining War and Peace by Tolstoy. So what I did, I just took all 3 volumes with me. The book was in 3 volumes. So, thinking that it would be useful, so I have a bit of time on the way. I can read during the journey to the competition and back. So I came back, I finished the book, I was, completely ready, and they only just started volume 1. So in a sense, chess was actually good for school because it taught planning, it taught discipline. So I never had any issues with leaving and missing quite a bit of school days. So it was never an impact on my study.
I read as well when you were growing up, swimming was another passion of yours.
Yeah, that was actually even before chess. I started swimming at the age of 6, and around the time I was 9, I was a seriously good swimmer. But then I had, it wasn't an injury, but something kind of which stopped me from pursuing it further. But yeah, I did a lot of swimming.
The reason I brought that up, I interviewed a good few people that are swimmers, have swam in Olympics and things like that. I suppose the link between swimming and maybe chess is that there's a serious level of maybe focus and concentration and almost kind of a meditation type approach to it, to be in the moment, present all of the time. Would you see that sort of link? And I'm very interested in concentration and how you maybe develop concentration, to have a better focus through the practice.
Well, I think in chess, maybe in other sports too, it all comes from the desire to win and do your best. So it's not something you kind of consciously do. You have a goal, and you know that in order to achieve it, you have to give it your best. The system maybe kind of shuts down, and you just focus on what you're doing. You probably know this expression, you're in the zone. And sometimes, I felt it in chess too, that you just kind of completely forget about everything else, and you just, play the game, and nothing else actually can bother you. I wouldn't say this is the normal condition for me, and I don't think it would be normal for anyone, but you get various degrees of that. That you're able to sort of concentrate because you want to win. So, yeah, I agree. Swimming is kind of meditation. In a sense, I remember during training, you just do lapses and you just kind of try to think about something, and I think in that sense, chess is much more interesting because it gives you more kind of stimuli, and you there are things happening around you more than like in swimming. I always thought was a rather solitary activity. You just the water yourself, and you just do your bit. In chess, you have interaction with opponent. You have certain distractions. In a sense, I think chess suits me much, much better than swimming.
Interesting. So at what point did you start to think, I'm actually pretty good at this, and maybe started to kind of take it more seriously and start maybe setting goals and ideas of becoming an international master or chess master? When did that start to come along?
I actually didn't. I just played. I liked the game. I tried my best. I never really thought it would be my career. Like most teenagers, I didn't really know what could be my career. I was just kind of living my life alone, and was quite happy about this. Apart from chess, I was quite involved in basketball. That was my other passion. So I was reasonably good at that too. So we had a team, and I would travel to competitions with that team, and would have training twice a day. So it was taking a lot of time as well. I had school studies. I had chess. I just lived my life. I didn't really think that I would be. I thought maybe that I might be a full-time chess professional, but not quite seriously. First time I thought about this was maybe around the time I was 20, and I had to make a decision. At that stage, I was studying at university, and I had to make a decision. I had an option of taking a sort of step back from studying and doing a kind of evening courses and concentrating on chess and getting some kind of a stipend from the Army Chess Club. And that was a biggish decision I had to make. And that's probably the first time I thought that this might be something I would do in the near future. And I took that route. And a few years later, the borders opened up, and people in the former Soviet Union were able to travel abroad more freely than ever before. And I started competing internationally. And it kind of coincided with great changes within the country. And it really made me think that pursuing, for example, a diploma in physics, this is what I had been studying, that perhaps wasn't the best course of action. I quit university. I enrolled myself into a college of foreign languages. I wanted to learn at least something about English. So, I started learning English, and that was another kind of step. So at that stage, I think I must have been 22, 23 around that time. I kind of started thinking that maybe chess is something I'll be doing, for foreseeable future. And, but it wasn't like one decision I made early in my life. It was sort of a series of moves, which led me in that direction.
It's, I suppose, interesting with other factors, or as the environment changes or opens up, it kind of brings you into different directions. But you're obviously good enough. You're obviously a strong player. And as I was doing the research as well, I wasn't aware of the difference between an IM or an international master and a grandmaster. Can you maybe talk to us about how the ranking system works, and how you started to maybe make moves up the ranking towards the GM role?
Okay. We have a kind of a structure, well-established structure in chess. Say somebody starts playing chess, maybe, say, a teenager, and you play and you're reasonably good and you like the game, you improve, and you get what's called a rating. And the rating is a number which goes up if you do well, and it goes down if you do badly. And it kind of depends what opposition you are facing. So if you're doing very well against really strong opposition, that number goes up dramatically. So basically, if you go up, and you probably start somewhere around, like, at the moment, 700, this is the lowest. But if you are maybe 1800, say in Ireland, 1800, you're a reasonably, good player. If you go above 2200, you are considered a national master. I believe that's the case. But you wouldn't be recognized internationally. To be recognized internationally, you have to have international rating. It's kind of a similar thing, but just obtained in international tournaments. And if you go to 2,300, it entitles you to get a title, a FIDE master. FIDE is the international body of governing chess and International Chess Federation. So you get FIDE master title. It's not particularly prestigious or anything like this, but it's kind of a useful measurement in a sense. So 2,300 is a pretty strong player. If you go above and your rating goes to 2,400 and you compete in competitions and you fulfill some criteria, it's a bit technical to explain, but basically you need 2 or 3 good results in kind of certified tournaments of certain level, not just any tournament. Then you have your rating of 2,400, you will become international master. That's a title which is for life. It cannot be taken away. And it's a title I found quite easy to obtain because the first 2 tournaments I played abroad, I got that title. So that was kind of came easy. Becoming a grandmaster was rather different. It was a big step. There is a big gap between those 2 titles, to be honest. So, grandmaster title, you need a rating of 2,500. Again, need 2 or 3 certified results. Well, getting those wasn't easy. I got the first one in the very first tournament when I had a chance. So I got it. I thought, it was kind of coming easy again, but getting the other 2 in my case wasn't. I think it took me about 5 years. So
these are called called norms, Alexander, are they? Is that the term?
Called norms, yes, yeah, called norms.
And how do you get a norm, or what's involved in? You mentioned you went into the tournament. Is it like winning an international tournament, or is it beating somebody at a higher level? Just interested in that.
No, it's none of the. Well, it's related to that, but not necessarily the only way. Okay, say you play in a competition, international competition. There has to be 9 rounds. At least.
Right.
Not many. Nowadays, not many tournaments will be 9 rounds. There could be 5. There could be 6, 7. It has to be 9.
And that's all knockout, is it? Knockout rounds?
No.
It's like...
in chess, knockout is not a very common format. We use a format called Swiss system when you have a big group of players. Could be as big as, 600 people sometimes.
Right. Okay.
And they all compete in one group. And you basically, if you do well, you play against people who also do well. So you always kind of play against your rivals. Okay. But you play 9 games. So if you play 9 games, that's one requirement, that it has to be no less than 9 games. In those 9 games, you have to play 3 grandmasters at least. So if you don't have 3, you have 2. That's not good enough. You cannot get a norm there, no matter how well you do. If you have 3 grandmasters among your opponents, they have to come from 4 different federations. So they cannot be from the same country, basically. Okay, so they have to be sort of international flavor to your opponents. Okay, then you have to look at their average rating, and it has to be above certain level, and you have to score a certain percentage of points depending on their level. So it's all rather technical. But let's put it this way: not every tournament you play, you have the opportunity to make a norm. And when you have the opportunity, sometimes you just don't make it, So sometimes you mess it up in the end. Even if you do well, you maybe need to draw in the last round and you lose, or you need to win and you fail to do so. So it kind of took me 5 years to get the required 3 norms. In my case, it was 3.
What would just two questions of that, I guess. In your experience, how, from watching others, how quickly can somebody become a Grandmaster? Is it conceivable that they could get it within a year, within 6 months, or is it?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You mean from beginning, starting play chess?
Well, I guess any perspective of looking at it, that, and this kind of goes back to that idea of the 10,000 hours and the practice, no matter how much maybe natural talent, if that exists for somebody, that they can't just rise to the top very quickly. What's the fastest movers you've seen?
Well, okay, in that case, we probably need to look at kids, because they kind of show how fast it could be done, okay? So there are some really young players now who have this title. I think there are a few guys who have like 14, 15, and they have the title of Grandmaster. That, to me, is a clear indication of exceptionally, good talent at chess. So they're not just ordinary guys in terms of their talent. They're quite exceptional to be able to do this at this age. Let's say they probably started chess typically when they were like 6, 7, something like this. So if somebody is 14 and started at 6, it still took them 8 years to from the beginning till getting the Grandmaster title. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about someone with really clear talent. Okay, mm-hmm. So that probably would be a good indication. Mm-hmm. So you probably need at least 8 years.
Right, and that would probably tally up with spending 7 or 8 hours a day or more sometimes for those.
That is hard to tell. I think if somebody is exceptionally talented and they spend that much time, I would say maybe sky is the limit. They can go very far. There have been some examples of that in chess, that there would be a Grandmaster who would have exceptional sort of self-discipline or drive to work, and sometimes they would really go to the top. However, if you just spend time and you don't have enough talent, and talent is something which is, chess talent is not easy to describe what it constitutes, then you will get better. There is no question, but there is also no guarantee that you will become a Grandmaster. Maybe you can become an international master. That may be possible, but it really depends. I mean, I've known some players who were talented, really hardworking, did not become Grandmasters. I mean, it happens quite often.
Mm. From the people you've played with and got to know at that level, do you see common traits in the Grandmasters that are obvious, or do you see very divergent types of people with different traits still making it to that sort of level?
I think there are all kinds of people play at that level. I don't think it would be possible to sort of come up with one stereotype. Grandmasters, they come in all kind of forms and shapes. One common trait, most really strong players, they hate losing. A famous chess player, Boris Spassky, once said that chess is a little death. So to lose at chess is extremely painful because you have no one to blame. You know that in the end of the days, it was you who was kind of responsible for it. And it psychologically can be very difficult. And a good player will do almost anything to avoid it. So sometimes they say that a good player is not driven as much by the desire to win than by the desire not to lose, and then experience this kind of feeling, negative feeling again. So it's kind of, the fear of this pain. certainly true. I mean, good players really hate losing. That's for sure. As for other qualities, they usually have kind of they can visualize things, the chessboard variations very well. I mean, you can't really do without it. And how quickly they can do it and how quickly they can process information, I think that often determines the degree of talent. I mean, I worked with some players who were extremely strong, like, top 10 in chess. And this is one thing I kind of noticed. We often and usually come to the same conclusion eventually. The only difference is they come to this conclusion much faster than me.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. You mentioned your journey to get to Grandmaster, and it took 5 years, and I'm sure there was some frustrations maybe or some defeats, and sounds like you mightn't like to lose in some scenarios as well. How did you develop the resilience to keep going? How did you deal with those frustrations?
Well, I mean, it's part of the deal, really. You win some games, you don't always win, and you know that. So dealing with frustrations, you kind of you say to yourself, I'll get them next time, and you kind of work harder. Usually, in the short term, you just need to kind of put it all behind. So if it's a game you lose, usually I would go for a walk, ideally somewhere near the water, kind of a lake or a little creek or river or anything like this. So just clear your head and you just get ready for the next game. In the long run, you think that you kind of know that if you keep doing it, if you keep doing something and you're reasonably good at this, your luck will turn around and you'll win some competition. So it's and often enough you don't actually have that much time to kind of spend time theorizing about this. You just kind of get on with life at hand.
You mentioned the word luck there. How much of a role does that have to play in success in chess?
Well, chess is supposed to be a game of pure skill. So in a way, I don't think there is much element of luck, but sometimes you kind of, people tend to look into this hard and they kind of see some luck, good luck or bad luck. I remember there was one competition where I lost an important game in the last round, in the penultimate round. And then even had I won in the last round, I needed something incredible, something like 9 results in games of my opponents go particular way. Being like a draw, win, lose. In 9 games, in each of them, I had to have a particular result. And chances that all 9 would go that way are just, close to 0. But that happened. I got all of them right, and I qualified to the next stage of the competition. So you can, call it luck. You can kind of start looking deeper and think this is, fate and stuff like this. But sometimes you get things like this. Another thing, life presents you with some opportunities. You meet someone who, I remember I played in Budapest. And at that stage, going to countries like Hungary was relatively easy. I mean, leaving Russia wasn't a problem already at that stage, but getting sort of invitations was not always easy. So I remember playing a game in Budapest, played a game against a guy from Austria. We then went to analyze the game. This is kind of a custom in chess. You look at the game with your opponent, like compare notes and things like this. And we started chatting. So I was keen to practice my English, and was just basically curious about life in Austria and things like this. So he said, "Why don't you come and play in Austria?" I said, "Well, I don't have any contacts there, I don't have any invitations." And he said, "Okay, I'll try to help you out." So he got in touch with his friend in Vienna, and I got an invitation to play in Austria. And I managed to get a visa to Austria in Budapest, which at that time was basically almost impossible. You're supposed to go back to your country of origin. So I was supposed to go back to Russia and apply there. But somehow I must have been very persuasive. I got that invitation. So I went to Austria. I played in the tournament in Vienna and met a German guy there playing in the same tournament. And he said, "Well, there is a small competition in my club in West Berlin. Would you like to play there?" And I did this trick again. I applied for a visa, and suddenly I got it. I mean, again, I was not supposed to get it, but I got it. A bit of luck, and I went to play in Berlin. And so I went to Budapest, but I actually went further to Austria than Germany and went back through Poland. I mean, not something I was not supposed to do. Sometimes little things like this, there is a bit of element of luck. You have opportunities, you either take them or you don't. So I guess in that case, I was active enough to kind of take those opportunities.
Good story. Interesting how it all developed out. Emotions are obviously at the fore of all of us, and when you're playing a game of chess, how do you control emotions during a game, in game, and has that developed over time?
Yeah, emotions are important. It's not easy to control them. They come in different sort of types and shades. It could be despair, for example. You're in a difficult position and you think, well, it's over. And you don't want to give in to that kind of emotion. Or another very dangerous emotion is kind of joy that you're winning, and you think that it's basically over and it's just formality. And inexperienced players usually fall into this trap. So they just think that they're invincible, and they can do no wrong. And this is exactly the moment when usually people do something stupid. So, and the game, which is won, suddenly is lost. And what's the expression? You snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Something like this. Yeah. So anyway, that is a very common emotion. I mean, I see it in kids a lot because they're new to all of this, and if they're winning, they think it's just over, before while the game is in progress, and they usually kind of pay the price. Okay, so a lot of that is down to experience. So you kind of you live through certain situations. They're typical, they're standard, and you kind of learn to recognize those patterns. That if I catch myself being a little bit too relaxed about the outcome of the game, I just give myself a mental kick and say, kind of wake up. It's you've seen it before. It may end up in tears. Sometimes you get into this zone when you actually kind of stop caring about, you just play the game. That's the best situation, best condition, but it doesn't happen too often, to be honest. But emotions, you learn to deal with them. You cannot control them quite completely, but you keep them sort of under control. And a lot of that comes with experience.
Nothing like experience to keep you focused. The style of play that you've developed, has that been a conscious decision, and how has that changed over the years?
I don't think anyone can really control their style of play. It's kind of a reflection have what they are good at, what they like. I don't think you can change a little bit, but you cannot really control your style. So it's something you're kind of almost you're born with. Some people, it boils down in chess to the level of risk you find acceptable. Okay, some people can like to attack, they can give away material easily, and they think it should be all kind of coming. It should be all kind of coming together in the end. Some people like to collect materials, so they like kind of more defensive players. It's not easy to explain your own style. I like kind of entertainment, I guess, in my games. My style of play, at least in the opening, can be rather risky and daring sometimes, but at the same time, it's I have rather solid foundation, so kind of sometimes I can be rather boring in my game. So I don't know. Style is not something you can correct too much, to be honest.
And when you're playing,
I don't think you should.
When you're playing against certain types of players, if they have certain sides, do you find it easier? Have you better success against a certain type than others? Is that something that comes into it when you play chess?
Yeah, that can be very much the case. There are two ways of sort of looking at this and dealing with this problem. There are some people who say that we play against pieces, so we try to stay objective and we just try to find best moves, no matter who is sitting across the board. There are some players in that group, and I remember there was a very well-known book by famous Yugoslav Grandmaster called Svetozar Gligoric, and he called his book the collection of his best games, I Play Against Pieces. So that was his kind of philosophy, that I'm trying to play objectively, I'm trying to do best moves, and I don't really adjust that much to my opponents. However, I would think that more players do take into the account who is sitting across the table, and they kind of adjust their play somehow. I think Kasparov wrote recently that one of the most important things in a chess player is not to allow to show his opponent what he is capable of. So you're kind of trying to make life difficult for your opponent. You try not to allow them to be at their best. Okay. So yeah, you can certainly take this into consideration when you play your game, when you plan what opening you play, what kind of type of game you try to get. You think about this. Whether you always succeed, it's questionable. I don't think you can always succeed. Sometimes, they can be, you can plan all you like, but the opponent is just stronger than you. So, that can be the case quite often. But sometimes you get better results with that kind of planning. You just don't always get the result you want.
And over the years of playing, have you felt you've always continually improved? Have you kind of hit maybe roadblocks? And I suppose a third part of that is, do you constantly have to put that effort in day, week, month over on top to keep moving forward? I guess is there a continual upward trajectory of your development?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's hard to tell. They kind of used to say that for a chess player, the chess player would normally kind of pick around the age of 35 in the past. That was the belief. Nowadays, they say it's maybe certainly younger, maybe 27, 28. They're kind of saying maybe even younger for this generation of players. So it constantly changes. So basically, if you look at a young player is working on the game, getting better, getting knowledge, getting experience, and it kind of goes up. But at some stage, other factors start taking its toll. Maybe motivation goes down a little bit, maybe other things. So basically you can reach your peak and then you start a kind of a descent. Recently I read that, Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, is not sure that he, is going to defend his title in the next match. I mean, he's undisputed number one in chess. He is the champion who is, sometimes it feels like head and shoulders above the rest. But for him to say something like this, well, maybe shows some lack of motivation. Maybe, ultimately that will probably, bring him down with time, and maybe he will play, less, maybe stop playing, or maybe he will play worse. That's also possible. So, I think there is a kind of a natural progression towards the peak, and then you're going to go down, unfortunately, even if you keep working. So you can slow that process. Some people stay at their sort of near their top level for a very long time. Usually, it's interesting. There is a rebound, sort of Indian summer,
second coming type thing.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's noticeable in many players. For example, former world champion Vasily Smyslov came very high up again when he was in his 60s. I mean, that was very, very noticeable. So it can happen, but you can't really say that I will work and my results will always go up. Sometimes you need to run, just to stay still. And sometimes even if you're running, you're actually going backwards a bit. So it's complicated enough. But in my own career, fortunately or unfortunately, but I probably stopped, developing as a player some 20 years ago. Because I had to do other things. Making a living being a chess player was not particularly easy, and I had my families to support. So I started coaching. I started writing articles. I wrote a book. I did a lot of very different things in chess. So it kind of made a conscious decision to diversify. And unfortunately, that came at the expense of my own sort of play. I stopped really working on my own game. So I keep playing. Even nowadays, I play occasionally, and I have a pretty solid sort of knowledge, sort of background I can fall back on, but it's not quite enough, to be honest. So. My example of a chess player wouldn't be a very typical one. I did not really work 5 hours on my chess. I probably worked 5 hours a day on teaching other people and writing about chess, but that's not quite the same.
Very interesting. And would you, it's probably difficult to say, but would you say the best player now is way better than the best player 20 years ago? Has the game continually moved on?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. The general knowledge is definitely, the general level is increasing. I can say that if you take an average sort of club player, someone who studies chess from time to time, plays in tournaments, that club player is a lot stronger now than his counterpart would be 20 or 30. years ago. There is no question of that. As for the top level, yes, they're stronger, but you cannot say they're more talented. They just have, the latest developments kind of acquired and all of this. So, I think some of the greatest players of the past, giving the time to acquire the same knowledge, they would be just as good as the best players now. So the level is, yes, it's higher, but it's not. It's mostly down to kind of a bit of knowledge people acquired.
I'll just finish up with a couple of quick final ones, Alexander. Just the role of kind of technology and maybe even playing chess online. Is that something Grandmasters have a positive or a negative look on?
Well, technology has changed chess kind of dramatically. Okay. So, in many, many ways, the first change came probably in early 90s. I remember, getting my first laptop computer, a chess program. I thought it was just absolutely fantastic. I think my laptop had 2 megabytes of disk space. I thought that was absolutely awesome. I sometimes tell this story to kids I teach in schools, and they look at me in disbelief, And I would tell them that was a very expensive, piece of technology, but it could do certain things. I could search for games played by other people very quickly. I could have information suddenly on my fingertips. Previously, you had to look at magazines. You had to kind of use some kind of getting information was difficult. So learning was a much slower process. Suddenly, learning became more accessible. It can be a good bit faster. So then came programs called chess engines. Those who can play chess, and they can analyze, and you can look at your games, and they will tell you where you went wrong, and etc. very quickly. And that's like having not quite a coach, but having someone who can actually sort of tell you about your mistakes very quickly. It doesn't tell you what to do with that knowledge, but at least it's quite useful. So it's like a spell checker. If you're writing something, it will not tell you how to write Dostoevsky, but it will tell you that you're making three mistakes in a long word with one sentence. So, but that was very useful too. It came with certain problems that nowadays cheating is a serious problem in some competitions. So people can basically access technology to kind of not play themselves and avail of help from like computers and stuff like this. So that is an issue
in real time in an actual physical game.
Yeah. You can somebody can go to a toilet and with a mobile phone in the pocket, and that mobile phone, I can tell you, can play chess better than most people. So you can get access to kind of chess engines online and things like this. So there are challenges. Let's put it this way: there are challenges, and but overall, it's been very positive. And people can watch chess. Chess is not a TV sport, definitely not, because it's too slow, and you have to have the audience kind of up to a certain standard to appreciate what's going on. But online, it has its place, it has its niche, and there are people watching tournaments live. They can comment, listen to commentary, things like this, like live podcasts of important tournaments. They're common. So yeah, in all in all, I think technology has been good to chess. It just kind of changed its face and kind of its nature quite a bit.
Interesting stuff. So finally, maybe just to wrap up, what advice would you give to your amateur players that really are keen to get better? What are the key approaches or techniques or practices that they could put into place to really start improving?
Well, I would suggest by do a bit of revision. Look at your own games. So that's always a good idea. Maybe revise and review your games and see what are your weaknesses, what are your strong points. Sometimes that kind of work isn't easy to do on your own. Maybe talk to someone who is a bit stronger or more experienced. Going to a coach when possible is definitely a good idea, because you might get a perspective you wouldn't get otherwise. That might be a good idea. And then make a plan, and usually you try to kind of, try to sort of fix your most obvious weaknesses and kind of rely on your strong points. So I don't think you need to do too much work. It's more important to be kind of consistent, to do a bit of work on a regular basis, studying positional things, maybe getting a book or two, reading. So there is a lot of information out there online. Sometimes you can, find that online. It's really down to using your time efficiently. And there are different approaches. I would say talk to someone who has more experience than you, maybe a better chess player, maybe a professional coach. It would be, worthwhile doing this. It's kind of hard to improve looking at your own game from just your own perspective. Sometimes you need another kind of point of view.
I think so, and I think not just in chess, but in anything unveiling.
In anything, yes, exactly. But I would say with a bit of time, with effort, you can actually do a lot. You can improve at any age. I believe in that. How far you can go, nobody can tell you, but certainly you can improve your current level of play if you put a bit of work. And if you know how to work on your chess, if you kind of have some structure in your work, you will probably do better than you would do otherwise. So you need to kind of have a plan. As one of the famous chess players said, a bad plan is better than no plan. So.
Exactly. I believe so. My background is in project management, and planning is key, and I found that to be very helpful, not just in work, but even in endeavours like podcasting. If you don't put the planning in and have some targets and goals to hit, you're probably a bit more aimless and random. So very true. Alexander, it's been fascinating. I really have enjoyed talking with you. Thanks so much for giving the time up. And how can folks get in touch with you? You do offer coaching, I believe, as well, right? So,
yeah, you can find me on Facebook. Just search for Alex or Alexander Baburin. I'm based in Dublin, so getting my contact details isn't difficult. I'm not hiding or anything. So get in touch via email. It's baburin@gmail.com. You can ask me questions about chess, and I'll do my best to help.
Brilliant. I'll share those out and put them onto the notes of the podcast episode. Alexander, thanks again so much. Good luck with your own continued play and getting that other Grandmaster in Ireland to that level. Exciting.
That's Sam Collins, my former student and a very good friend of mine. Sam Collins from Monkstown in Dublin, and hopefully he will be the first Irish-born Grandmaster, although he has to watch his back because there are quite a few talented young players who will be getting to that standard. So he can't relax. So
yeah, these things
speed up a bit.
These things don't come easy for sure. Hard work is definitely needed. Brilliant. Alexander, thanks again. I really appreciate it. Look forward to sharing it out.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Okay, bye.
Good luck. Bye-bye. So this is the outro of the podcast, guys. You got to the end, and that is great. Please hang in here for another couple of minutes. I know most people won't, but maybe there's something here of interest. So check this out. First off, thanks so much for listening to this one, as well as maybe the 100 or so that's gone before it. Why not check them out if you haven't already? There's lots of good stuff in there. The whole podcasting journey for me has been a huge learning, and I'm trying to help you guys learn and improve as well. So much has changed over the last few years since I started it. I've really realised lots of the goals that I put out there, and then realised so many unexpected benefits as well. And I think anytime you take on action towards a goal, you're going to pick up lots of things that you didn't expect along the way, and hopefully they're good things. In this particular episode, was there any one or two things that jumped out? Maybe you could take a pen and paper out right now, because this is something that you might think of during the episode but never do. Do it now. Take it out. Write down a goal that you're going to set yourself as a result of something you learned from this episode. Put a plan in place and then work towards it, applying yourself deliberately over time. Take ownership, build a habit, improve, get 1% better, share accountability with somebody you know in a buddy system, and learn and grow and improve. That's what it's all about. That's my, hopefully, inspirational piece done. Other areas to note: check out the website robofthegreen.ie. You can consume everything there for free. There is obviously the podcast, there's video, 1 Minute Monday clips, there's articles, not enough, but I'd like to put more there. If you're interested in putting one there, let me know. And there's a Get Better app page, which I'm starting to add new content to over time. There's a feedback page if you want to email me, rob@robofthegreen.ie instead. But it's all about trying to engage you and get you to a place of improvement. So I'm open to feedback. As I said, ways you can help me is by following me on the socials. @robofthegreen.ie is the website, or @robofthegreen on all the social platforms. Subscribe to the podcast on any of the apps that you might listen to it on. Talk about it. Tell a friend about it, tell your family members about it, share some of the ideas, not only to your friends but to me. Is there anything I can improve upon? Sign up to the newsletter, that's there as well. I'm experimenting again with a group called Slack, Rob of the Green on Slack. This is really for a shared accountability environment and sharing ideas. You can sign up to that on the website as well. All of this is obviously all free, but there is also an option where you could subscribe to my Patreon site and make a small donation for the content that we do. It's there. It's totally up to you. Everything that is coming in through that or could come in through that will go into making the podcast better. So, to close, I am always trying to improve and get better. Change is difficult, I know that, but it's all about taking the first step. Learning something, applying yourself, moving forward. You can do this. I've been able to improve, pushing myself outside the comfort zone, learning, and I think if I can do it, so can you. Don't overreach, don't set yourself unrealistic goals. 1% at a time is enough, but it's all about starting, and that will bring you on your pursuit of betterness to a great place. Thanks for sticking to the very end. Talk to you next time, and take care. Good luck.